All right, guys, what's going on? Jacob here, Miami Dolphins Syndicate. We got a little bit of a makeshift setup here again. We got cardboard box. We got a cardboard box. We got my phone. We got a soda can holding up the phone behind. My room is still currently in disarray. My computer is in a different room. Last week, my apartment flooded, so we're making do here. All right, got our everything else in our normally you know, regular positions here. And we got the depth chart for the first official depth chart for the Miami Dolphins here to talk about today. Let's get right into it, taking a look. Not a whole lot of surprises you'll see with this depth chart here. Of course, starting with the wide receivers, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle as your one and your number two. No surprise. Certainly excited to see year two. Malik Washington really ended the season well last season. Somebody who can plug and play when Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle come off the field. Very similar skill sets, undersized, really quick. Just want to get the ball in their hands, and there could be some explosive plays from Malik Washington this year. Nick Westbrook and Kine, somebody who signed from the Tennessee Titans in the offseason, slightly different type of skill sets, and because of that, I do actually expect him to get on the field more. He's currently listed as the wide receiver 4 on this depth chart. However, with the size, with a little bit more physicality in his game that he provides, I do expect to see a bigger snap percentage just week in, week out than Malik Washington. And then you look throughout the rest of the wide receiver core, there'll just be guys fighting for their spots with, of course, Eric Azukama. Maybe because of his size, you could see him maybe getting a little bit more snaps as somebody who is a second option to Westbrook and Keenan in terms of that department. D. Eskridge and then Taj Washington and a bunch of dudes who are just going to be fighting for spots and likely not going to be seeing a whole lot of touches behind Nick Westbrook and Keenan. I'd be surprised in that wide receiver group to see 10 to 15 combined catches from those guys listed. So, wide receiver group, pretty straightforward what we expect it to be. However, with the offensive line, there is a bit of surprise to me. In by come week one, this wouldn't be a surprise, but where we are in the offseason is a bit of a surprise, especially if you take a look further down the depth chart, which we will in a moment. But Jonas Savai listed as a starter in the first depth chart here. And not gonna lie, that does surprise me a little bit. Typically, you see teams wait to give the starting spot to rookies till after the second game, maybe even the third game in the preseason, where we all know it's coming, but they aren't officially listed as the starter. So that's, in my opinion, that's high praise of Jonas Savai. And I call him Savai. I don't know how to say his full name. And I'm here recording. I'm not trying to mess that up and have to start the recording all over again. So Jonas Savai over Liam Eichenberg, over the experience of Liam Eichenberg, and we certainly expect him to be a better player than Liam Eichenberg. But typically, like I mentioned, you see the guys with the experience given these starting spots with the first depth chart before the preseason gameplay on Sunday against the Bears. So I'm very excited to see if the starters play at all on Sunday. How this left side of the offensive line plays. Patrick Paul, Jonas Avai, two brand new pieces, basically brand new pieces. Patrick Paul barely played a snap last year. Really only came in when Teron Armstead would ultimately inevitably check himself out in the second drive of the game because he was injured. So that was really the extent that Patrick Paul got. Now Patrick Paul running with the ones as the starting left tackle. So back to back early picks last two seasons that the Dolphins used on the offensive line, working together, brand new left side of your offensive line. Aaron Brewer, of course, came over last year, was pretty good up the middle at the center position. Daniels coming over from the Pittsburgh Steelers this last offseason. Austin Jackson on the right. So Austin Jackson being the only member of this offensive line that has more than 1 year experience with this Dolphins team. He has all of a sudden become the rock of the offensive line. Hopefully he can stay healthy. This is a very different looking offensive line than we saw last year. It should be much improved. It's certainly younger than it was last year. So I'm excited to see how this plays out. If we get any look at the first team on Sunday, I'm excited to see this offensive line. They need really as many snaps together as they can get. So I wouldn't be surprised to see the offensive line play maybe one drive, even if it's not with Tua on Sunday. You look at the tight end group, and it's weak. It is really weak. You got Darren Waller, which we have no idea how good he's going to be. We have no idea when we're really going to see him, when he's going to come off the pup list, when he's going to be fully healthy to play. Behind him, everyone's favorite Dolphin, Julian Hill, Pharaoh Brown, Tanner Connor, and there's a few guys just rounding out the roster that probably aren't going to make it. It's a very weak tight end group with this Dolphins team, and Darren Waller is going to spearhead that. Not sure to what extent he's going to, what type of athlete we're going to get from him at this point in his life, at this point in his career. Nick Westbrook and Keenan could ultimately play an impromptu tight end. Certainly not somebody you would want to line up on the line as basically as a six offensive lineman like we saw Durham Smythe sometimes do, and even Jonnu Smith could do a little bit. While Westbrook-Ikine has the size vertically, he does not have the size horizontally. So I think he could end up running routes that you typically see tight ends run. However, he's not going to be an extension of the offensive line. You're not going to be getting any blocking from him. So it, in a weird way, he's almost like the tight end too, in my opinion, just based off of the routes I expect him to run. Because if you expect any sort of regular contribution from Julian Hill in a positive manner, you're probably going to be disappointed. And then you look at the running back group. Devon Achane obviously is going to be the leader there. And then Jalen Wright is currently listed as the backup, as he is the most experienced member of this running back group, just in terms of wearing a Dolphins uniform. Madison comes over, Ollie Gordon, a late round draft pick. 2, 3, 4 is going to be strictly determined by the rest of the preseason. You know, these guys are going to, all three of them are going to get their opportunity, and whoever is the best of the bunch is going to be the two. Last year, Jalen Wright certainly was not good enough to hold that position. That's why we use another draft pick on a running back. That's why we bring in another running back in Alexander Madison to compete with him. None of these guys are great options. Ollie Gordon has the highest potential. Jalen Wright, if he could just figure out how to read an offensive line, and Alexander Madison is a steady veteran. These guys are all going to get opportunities. 2023, the running back duo between Devon Achane and Raheem Mostert was excellent. Last year, not so much. Just Devon Achane, couldn't find anybody else behind him to really give him any help. So those three are all going to get opportunity, and it's really just going to be the best man wins when it comes to the running back 2 position. Let's move back down to the defense, and you take a look at what I just mentioned with Jonas Avai, how he's going to be given the starting spot apparently off the rip. Cannot say the same for our first round pick, Kenneth Grant, currently listed behind Zach Zeeler and Benito Jones. Obviously, he's going to be behind Zach Zeeler even when it comes to week 1. But Benito Jones, not the greatest. So Kenneth Walker, I wish we had Kenneth Walker. Kenneth Grant is going to have to fight for that spot. Now, whether that comes down to whether that's because he hasn't been as great in camp so far, or whether it is just a more traditional route in terms of how you take a look at rookies, whereas he's going to be currently the defensive tackle number 3. I think either of them are just as likely that either he hasn't been as good, or they're just giving him the rookie treatment, or a little bit of both. I do expect by the time week 1 comes around, I do expect him to be the starter. You draft a guy that high in the draft, 13th overall, you do expect him to be able to be plugged in immediately and contribute. So by the time week 1 comes around, I do expect Kenneth Grant to be the starter. You look at that edge group: Chop Robinson, Bradley Chubb, currently listed as your starting guys outside, and then Jalen Phillips a little bit further down as a starting linebacker. If all those guys are healthy, if all those guys are firing, that is a very lethal outside rush group, because he's currently listed as an outside linebacker, Jalen Phillips is, but you're not going to see Chop Robinson, Bradley Chubb, and Jalen Phillips all on the field at the same time. That is something you're very, very likely not going to see, except for maybe very rare occasions. So that's going to be a 3-man rotation at the top of your edge group, and that's up there with one of the best edge groups in the league if they can stay healthy. Bradley Chubb missed all of last season. Jalen Phillips essentially missed all last season. So to have those guys all back and all at their best, you're looking at 3 first-round picks in your edge group, all of which we've seen perform well in a Dolphins uniform. I'm very excited for year 2 from Chop Robinson. You look at your linebacker group with Dodson and Brooks, and Dodson was a revelation last year, picking him up off of waivers from the Seattle Seahawks. He was the best middle linebacker we had on the team last year, and he only played a handful of games after the Seahawks really inexplicably waived him. So I was really excited to see us bring him back, just with how much success he had last year. Was a real nuisance over the middle of the field in the passing game defensively for this Dolphins team. Jordan Brooks is very okay. He's going to be solid. Willie Gay Jr. Behind him. It's an all right group. It's definitely not the strong suit, but it shouldn't be a group that loses the Dolphins games per se. That is registered for the very next group with our cornerback group with Storm Duck, and I'm not gonna lie, I don't even know who Kay Sheffield is. I'm just gonna be completely 100% truthful with you. When I open this up, I'm like, who? That is our currently our starting cornerback group with Mike Hilton as the nickelback. Safety group a little bit more promising with, of course, Minka Fitzpatrick, who apparently he's been fantastic so far in camp, and Ashton Davis. The defense, we got to get pressure on the quarterback. If we can get pressure on the quarterback and help out our secondary group, this defense might be okay. If we cannot get to the quarterback, we are going to be bleeding points regularly and not being able to control the time of possession, which we really needed at the end of some games last year that we lost. Looking at the Cardinals game, looking at the Bills game, where we were not able to control time of possession, we were not able to control the ball with 6 minutes left to go in the game, and ultimately those two games end up costing the Miami Dolphins spot in the playoffs. If we can get to the quarterback and put less stress on this secondary group, that would be amazing. That's how the Dolphins can stay in and win a lot of games. Uh, Much improved interior defensive line by using a top pick. So the defensive line, if everybody's firing on all cylinders and you're getting the best from your 4 first round picks that you're probably going to see starting on the defensive line for the Miami Dolphins, then it puts less worry of what goes around outside. Now, it still very much matters and still very much is a weak point of this team. Again, Storm Duck and insert first name Sheffield as your starting cornerback group. Obviously, with the injuries the Dolphins have sustained, it's what you got to deal with. Now, there's still possibilities of other guys coming in. Most notably, Asante Samuel Jr. is a name. CJ Henderson. There was links with him in the Miami Dolphins. Those are all still real and all still very much possible. But what we got right now, this is the weakest cornerback group in the league. And then you move down to the special teams guys, and nothing really to write home about there. Jason Sanders, Jake Bailey, or Stonehouse. Whoever wins that, cool. Whoever loses that, oh well. Cardona, long snapper, Malik Washington, both as the primary kick return and punt return guy, and that's certainly a role I think he's going to have all season long. He did a great job last year. He just does a great job with the ball in his hands. He's not a great route runner, but he's athletic, he's quick, he's hard to get your hands on. So I love Malik Washington as a returner. Last year, I was very excited to see him play as our returner in preseason because that's how I saw him getting a role on this team, and that's ultimately what happened. He played out really well as the returner, and he then was rewarded with some legitimate snaps towards the end of the season. So I'm excited to see him in year two. Let me know some of these other guys that are going into year two or year one with Jonas Savai on the offensive line that you're excited to see. Some of these younger guys. Who do you think is going to win out the RB2 spot? That's going to be something we're going to be looking at all preseason long, whether it be Wright, Madison, or Ollie Gordon. That is something I'm very excited to see, as well as Kenneth Grant eventually get himself into that starting defensive tackle role. Let me know your thoughts on this very first depth chart we are seeing from the Miami Dolphins. Again, not a lot of surprises, but still definitely interesting taking a look at. Hopefully, the next time I record a video, the setup will be back. I don't think my room is going to be in any less disarray. I just think I'm just going to say screw it and go get my stuff and put everything back together. I just don't want to keep lugging stuff back and forth, especially an expensive PC. So hopefully next time we'll look a little bit better. But appreciate y'all very much for watching. Let me know your thoughts on this down below. We'll catch y'all next time. Have a great rest of your day. Go Dolphins.